Friends, today we bring you a shocking tale of brutality, conspiracy, and deception, one that you may have never heard before. This is the story of a family that fought poverty and hunger, escaping from war-torn Afghanistan to Pakistan and then to Saudi Arabia. Upon arriving in Saudi Arabia, this young man becomes a millionaire. With immense wealth, the entire family moves to Canada, believing it to be their new home. However, as soon as they arrive in Canada, an unimaginable tragedy befalls them, an event no one could have foreseen. Suddenly, this family becomes the headline of newspapers worldwide. When the truth behind this mysterious incident is revealed, everyone is left in shock. Hearing this entire story will shake you to your core. During the court proceedings of this case in Canada, the judge commented that no other incident could be more horrifying and gruesome. Even today, this event is remembered as the greatest example of conspiracy and deception in Canadian history. But what is the complete story behind this incident? How did a middle-class Afghan family become millionaires in Dubai, and what happened to them that made this case a historical example of betrayal? Most importantly, who is behind this entire event? Stay with us until the end of this video as we unveil every detail. Trust me, the truth will leave your mind stunned. The central character of this story is a man named Mohammed Shafia. Mohammed Shafia was born around 1950 in Kabul, Afghanistan, into a middle-class family. He dropped out of school in the 7th grade to join his family business, working hard to improve their financial situation. Over time, his efforts bore fruit, and his family became one of the wealthiest in the region. As Shafia reached marriageable age, his family began searching for a suitable bride. One day, his mother attended a relative's wedding, where she noticed a beautiful girl named Rona Muhammad Omar. Rona was the daughter of a retired Afghan army colonel. Shafia's mother immediately liked her and proposed the marriage. Since Shafia was good-looking and financially stable, Rona's father agreed to the proposal. Mohammed Shafia and Rona Muhammad Omar were married in February 1979 at the famous Intercontinental Hotel in Kabul in a grand ceremony. Initially, the couple lived happily together. However, over time, their happiness started to fade, and bitterness crept into their relationship. Several years passed, but the couple remained childless. Despite multiple attempts and medical treatments, Rona was unable to conceive. Almost 10 years passed after their marriage, yet they had no children. Since Mohammed Shafia was financially well off, he decided to take his wife to India for advanced medical treatment based on the advice of Afghan doctors. After reaching India, both underwent medical tests, and the results revealed that Rona Muhammad Omar could never conceive. When Shafia's family in Afghanistan learned about this, their attitude toward Rona changed drastically. They began pressuring Shafia to marry a second wife. Rona, being an independent and intelligent woman, understood the situation. One day she told her husband, "Since I can never give you the joy of fatherhood, you should marry another woman. I have no objections." With Rona's consent, Shafia agreed to a second marriage. Surprisingly, Rona herself took an active role in finding a suitable bride for her husband. Eventually, in 1989, she selected a girl named Tuba, who was a relative of a family friend. After finalizing everything, Mohammed Shafia married Tuba in 1989. A grand wedding reception was held once again at the same Intercontinental Hotel in Kabul. A grand party is organized where Shafia's first wedding took place. In this party, Shafia's first wife, Rona, actively participates. She takes many pictures with her husband and his new bride. At this moment, just as the other family members are happy, Rona too appears to be quite joyful. After the wedding, the three of them start living together happily in the same house. The expectation with which Shafia had married again is fulfilled within a few months. Just a few months after the wedding, the family receives the joyous news that Shafia's new bride, Tuba, is pregnant. A year later, Shafia becomes a father. A daughter is born into the family, and she is named Zainab. Although Tuba gave birth to the child, Rona Muhammad, Shafia's first wife, takes full care of her. Rona loves Zainab like her own child and takes full responsibility for her. After some time, in October, Tuba becomes pregnant again and gives birth to a son. Then, in October 1991, she becomes a mother for the third time and gives birth to a daughter who is named Sahar. Even though Tuba was the mother, Rona Mohammed was happier than anyone else. Tuba places Sahar in Rona's arms and says, "She is your daughter now. Take care of her as your own." Happiness had returned to Mohammed Shafia's personal life after years. However, Afghanistan was now completely engulfed in war. The battles that had been happening in different parts of Afghanistan had now reached the capital. For some time, Shafia manages to arrange security for his family and gather enough food. But as the situation worsens, his business collapses. Soon they even begin facing a shortage of food. With 3 small children in the house, survival becomes incredibly difficult. Finally, seeing the worsening conditions, Mohammed Shafia decides to flee Kabul with his 3 children and 2 wives. They escape to Pakistan. For the next few years, Mohammed Shafia stays in Pakistan with his family, surviving by running small businesses to provide for them. During this period, their family continues to grow, and Tuba gives birth to 7 children, 5 daughters and 2 sons. After spending a few years in Pakistan, when Shafia's financial condition improves again, he decides to leave in search of a better life. He moves to the United Arab Emirates with his entire family. Upon reaching Dubai, Shafia struggles for a while to find a job. Initially, it is difficult even to afford 2 meals a day. However, with persistent effort, he starts his own export-import business under the name M. Shafia Trading. Through this company, he imports Panasonic electronics from Japan to Dubai and sells them across various regions. He also starts importing thermoses. This marks the turning point in Mohammed Shafia's life. His business flourishes, and he becomes incredibly wealthy in no time. His entire family moves into a luxurious mansion in an expensive area of Dubai, and their lives transform completely. From living with limited resources, Mohammed Shafia's family now starts living a luxurious life. Expanding his business further, Shafia enters the luxury used car market. He begins importing high-end cars from the US and selling them in Dubai. This venture also brings him massive success. With this rapid growth, Shafia enrolls his children in an expensive American English school in Dubai instead of a public school. For the next 10 years, he continues to thrive in Dubai, rising from a middle-class Afghan background to a millionaire. After achieving financial success, he also ventures into real estate, where he earns massive profits. In Dubai, everything Shafia touches seems to turn into gold. Now he owns a thriving business empire, luxury cars worth millions, and extravagant homes. However, despite all this success, one thing still seems missing in his life: citizenship in the UAE. Shafia desperately wants UAE citizenship so his children will never have to return to Afghanistan. He makes several attempts but is unsuccessful in obtaining it. Realizing that he may never get UAE citizenship, he shifts his focus to New Zealand, hoping to acquire citizenship there. However, his first wife, Rona Mohammed, is deemed medically unfit during the immigration process, leading to the rejection of their visa application. Despite this setback, Mohammed Shafia does not give up. He then moves to Australia and stays there for a year, attempting to secure citizenship. Unfortunately, his efforts fail again, and he is forced to return to Dubai. By 2007, Mohammed Shafia's success story continues. He has immense wealth, but still he lacks citizenship in any Western country. Mohammed Shafia had not yet received citizenship. In 2007, the Canadian government introduced a scheme stating that if a foreign citizen invested more than $400,000 in the province of Quebec, they would be granted permanent residency in return. This was the opportunity Mohammed Shafia had been waiting for years. Without hesitation, he decided to move to Canada. However, early on, he discovered that according to Canadian policy, individuals with more than one wife would not be eligible for this scheme. Shafia found a way around this rule. He convinced his first wife, Rona, that they would all move to Canada first, and later, he would find a way to bring her as well. Once everything was finalized, Mohammed Shafia moved to Canada with his second wife and 7 children, leaving Rona behind in Dubai with a relative. Upon arriving in Canada, Shafia settled in Montreal. The first thing he did was purchase a silver Lexus SUV worth approximately $4 million. Within a month of landing, he also invested around $2 million to construct a mall in Quebec, as per the scheme's requirements. Additionally, Shafia launched a large-scale import-export business. Not stopping there, he bought a luxurious mansion in Quebec for $900,000, which took over 2 years to build. Until then, the family lived in a rented house. A few months later, Shafia's dream finally came true. After meeting all the conditions, he and his family received permanent residency in Canada. After spending more than 6 months in Canada, Mohammed Shafia started making arrangements to bring his first wife, Rona, from Dubai. Since Canadian immigration laws did not allow him to bring her as a wife, he declared her as a distant relative and applied for a visa under the pretext of hiring her as a housemaid. Soon he was granted the visa, and Rona arrived in Canada as a domestic worker. As time passed, all the children were enrolled in Canada's top schools. However, Shafia spent most of his time in Dubai, as his primary business was still running there. His son Hamed, who was about 17 to 18 years old, managed their business in Canada and kept his father informed about both business operations and family matters. By 2008, the family had been living in Canada for over a year, and things began to change drastically. Conflicts within the family started to arise. The biggest reason for these disputes was the cultural differences. The children were studying in elite English medium schools where the environment was vastly different from their traditional Afghan upbringing. The younger members of the family started adopting Canadian culture, wearing Western clothes and embracing a more liberal lifestyle. On the other hand, Mohammed Shafia and his second wife, Tuba, expected their daughters to follow traditional Afghan values. This clash often led to heated arguments between the children, parents, and even siblings. The situation escalated further when the family discovered that their eldest daughter, Zainab, was in a relationship. In February 2008, while studying at a Montreal school, Zainab was proposed to by a Pakistani-origin boy named Amar Wahid. Since she liked him, she accepted the proposal, and they began dating. However, Zainab knew that her family would never approve of this relationship. Out of fear, she and Amar started meeting in secret. Unfortunately, their secret did not last long. A few months later, one day, when Zainab's father and mother were away in Dubai for business and her brother Hamed was also out, she invited Amar to her house. But just as Amar had arrived, Hamed unexpectedly returned home. Seeing her brother, Zainab panicked and quickly tried to hide Amar in the garage, but by then it was too late. Hamid notices Wahid and heads straight to the garage. He pulls Wahid out and tells him to leave immediately. Zainab, in desperation, falls at her brother's feet, pleading with him not to inform their father. However, Hamid refuses to listen and immediately calls their father, informing him about Zainab's boyfriend and how he was caught at their house. Chaos erupts in the household. From that moment on, Zainab's freedom is completely restricted. Whenever she steps out of the house, a family member always accompanies her. Just as things begin to settle, another storm brews within the family. The younger daughter, Sahar, falls in love with a boy at school. One day, she gets caught kissing her boyfriend. Furious, her mother, Tuba, storms into the school and creates a huge scene. The humiliation and scolding deeply affect 16-year-old Sahar, pushing her to the brink of despair. Overcome with distress, Sahar attempts suicide the very next day. Her stepmother, Rona, her younger sister, Giti, and her brother, Mohammed Umar, rush to stop her just in time. However, her biological mother, Tuba, remains indifferent to her daughter's pain. Instead of showing concern, she shockingly remarks that Sahar deserves to die for her actions. Devastated by her mother's cruelty, Sahar becomes even more withdrawn. A few days later, on May 7, 2008, she attempts suicide again by slitting her wrist with a pair of scissors at school. Fortunately, Hamid arrives just in time, snatches the scissors away, and saves her life. After this incident, strict rules are imposed on both Zainab and Sahar. Even Rona, their stepmother, faces extreme restrictions and mistreatment. The reason? Rona often supported the children's choices and believed they should live life on their own terms with freedom. Because of this, the children became more attached to her, which angered Tuba and Shafia. Despite the growing tension, Rona continued to stand by the children. Eventually, due to continuous mistreatment, Rona decides to divorce her husband, Mohammed Shafia. However, at the children's insistence, she changes her mind and stays. Meanwhile, Zainab remains confined at home for over 10 months and is no longer allowed to attend school. By now, she is 19 years old. Desperate, she tearfully begs her parents for forgiveness and pleads to return to school, promising to never repeat her past mistakes. Her father, Shafia, finally agrees but transfers her to a new school. Alongside, she also enrolls in a special night class to learn French. She is allowed to attend school alone, but for her night classes, she is always accompanied by either her brother, Hamid, or her mother, Tuba. Amid all these restrictions, Zainab attempts to rebuild her life. However, one day, when she is home alone, she finds herself missing her old boyfriend, Wahid. Overwhelmed with emotions, she writes him an email, expressing how much she misses him. Soon, they resume their conversations in secrecy, and when opportunities arise, they start meeting again. Once more, Zainab falls deeply in love with Wahid. Meanwhile, Sahar becomes increasingly lonely and depressed. Seeing her younger sister's sadness, Zainab convinces their parents to let Sahar join her in her French class. Even there, Sahar remains withdrawn. Hoping to uplift her, Zainab introduces Sahar to a boy named Ricardo Sanchez, a 21-year-old from their class. Slowly, Sahar starts enjoying Ricardo's company. Their friendship blossoms into love, bringing joy back into Sahar's life. Now in the household, Zainab is in a relationship with a Pakistani-Canadian man named Amar Wahid, while Sahar is in love with Ricardo. The only two people aware of these relationships are their youngest sister, 13-year-old Geeti, and their stepmother, Rona. Unlike her older sisters, Geeti is more outspoken and influenced by Western culture, which deeply displeases her parents. They repeatedly insist she abandon Western attire and adopt traditional Afghan clothing, but Geeti refuses to comply. Shafia, despite wanting his daughters to adhere to Afghan traditions, ironically lives a Western lifestyle himself. He is not religious and has never visited a mosque since arriving in Canada. In April 2009, a major turning point occurs. One day, Zainab, Sahar, and Geeti go to a mall under a false pretext and return home late. As soon as they enter, Shafia and Hamid unleash their fury. Shafia hurls abuses, while Hamid slaps Zainab across the face. By now, Zainab is over 19 years old. Humiliated by her father's insults and her younger brother's slap, she reaches a breaking point. The next day, on April 17, 2009, she takes an unthinkable step. She runs away from home. Panicked, her brother Hamid immediately calls 911, reporting that his sister has fled. Given that Zainab is the daughter of a wealthy businessman, the police take immediate action. Within hours, they locate her at a women's shelter. When the police ask her why she ran away, Zainab firmly states, "I want to live life on my own terms. I am not going back." Back at home, her escape takes a toll on the entire family. The children's academic performance plummets and they begin missing school for weeks at a time. Meanwhile, Zainab remains at the shelter, where she contacts Wahid and makes plans to marry him. Determined, she informs her mother Tuba over the phone, saying, "I am marrying Wahid soon." Hearing this, Tuba breaks down in tears and begs her daughter to return home, promising that she will handle everything and even arrange the marriage. Convinced by her mother's reassurances, Zainab returns home on May 1, 2009, just after her father leaves for a business trip to Dubai. However, her return was not the joyous reunion she had hoped for. Once again, Tuba pressures her to cancel the marriage, arguing that marrying a Pakistani man would bring dishonor to their family. When Zainab refuses, Tuba contacts her brother Fazal Javed, who runs a pizza parlor in Sweden. She pleads with him to convince Zainab to reconsider. Javed repeatedly tries to persuade her over the phone, but in the end, he admits to Tuba, "Zainab truly loves Wahid and will marry him no matter what. If you stop her, she will run away again." Hearing this, Tuba finally gives in. While Shafia is still in Dubai, Tuba calls a relative, Latifa Haidari, to arrange for a cleric to conduct the wedding. She also books a restaurant for the reception. Everything is set. On May 18, 2009, Zainab and Wahid get married. The next day, a grand reception is held at a luxurious restaurant. Many guests attend, but not a single member from Wahid's family is present. They, too, oppose the marriage. For Tuba, this was a great humiliation. Friends and relatives gossip, and Tuba, overwhelmed with shame, silently weeps. Despite it being a wedding celebration, the atmosphere feels more like a funeral. Amidst this tense gathering, Tuba suddenly collapses and faints. Before moving on, please subscribe to support us. Thank you.